Hello, I'm Mark Elliott from Fluent Finance Abroad, and I'm very happy to say that I'm here with a gentleman that I think we all know in the industry, in the real estate industry, Alfredo Glory Dawson. Hello, Alfredo.
How you doing, man?
I think it's about time that we actually found out more about the man who behind the camera. Obviously, you're very, very much involved in the real estate business here in the Costa del Sol. So let's kick off then. So tell us a little bit about Alfredo and a bit about your background, please.
Well, I'm English. I was born in England. Moved here in 1975 with my family when I was 4. Grew up over here. Went to school here at an American school in Fort Williams. Then did university and 10, 15 years in the UK working. And moved back in 2008. Uruguayan mother, so that's why the name Alfredo. I have nothing blood-wise related to Spain unless you go back to my mother's Uruguayan heritage to Vigo or somewhere in the Galicia area. And when I came, my past in England in terms of professionally, I studied accountancy, but it wasn't really for me. And then I worked for 10, 15 years in management in the UK all over the north. And I always wanted to come back from the UK to here because I had grown up here. So I kind of knew the lifestyle was better than it is in the UK to my taste. I think if you've never had it, you don't miss it, but if you had it, it's hard to stay away. Many of my friends that grew up with me have come back since with their families. It's a good place to raise a family. So I moved back here with my then girlfriend in 2008. We eventually got married and had 2 kids. Got 2 girls, 9 and 10. And when I came back, the first 3.5 years I worked in the newspaper, the Euro Weekly News. When I left, I was the editor. And from there, I went into a marketing agency called Voodoo, which was where my wife was working. So it was kind of a natural thing. The way marketing and real estate and all that kind of stuff was going was towards content. And so they thought, let's get someone that's worked at a newspaper that's pushing up 400 pages of newspaper every week to help generate content for our clients. And the majority of those clients were real estate agents, because that's where the money is at here on the coast if you're not running a leisure facility.
Can I just take it back to your time in the UK?
Yeah.
And you said you worked for some companies, but what kind of companies were they? I mean, you started off studying accountancy, and all of a sudden we've gone into Spain. So what's the story?
Okay, the story is, I was studying accountancy. My father had suggested it. It really wasn't my choice. I fell in love with a girl. Me and the girl broke up. I was heartbroken. So I left England, quit my job at the accountancy firm. I was doing a chartered accountancy training contract. So I was 3.5, 4 years in. And I was all heartbroken, wasn't interested in continuing what I was doing. And a friend of mine was running a record label in New York. And he said, why don't you come here? So I grabbed my stuff and I left to New York. I left everything in the UK, left my career and everything. Did that for about a year.
A record label
in Manhattan. I didn't end up working at the record label. Well, I did, but it wasn't really going anywhere. It was a bit random. So in New York, I ended up working in a pizza place. I was a chef in an Italian restaurant. We were selling books by the university, and it was hustle. It was great fun. But my father passed away a year later, and he lived in Gibraltar.
Right.
And I'd overstayed my visa in the States because I had a British passport, and yeah, a 3-month waiver visa thing. So I figured if I went to the funeral, I wouldn't be able to get back in. So we had to leave everything in New York. I was super happy there. I would have stayed happily. And both who came back to Spain was the family I was living with in Malaga City, which is where we are now, to go to the funeral. Did the funeral thing, and then I was stuck here in Spain. And Spain is amazing, but work-wise, it's a bit challenging at times, especially if you're young. So my plan was to go back to New York, but there was no work over here. So I'd been offered a job at a magazine as a sub-editor whilst I was in Europe, a magazine in the UK.
Right.
It's all very confusing. And since I was in Europe, I got back in touch with that magazine and said, if you're still looking for somebody, I'm available. So I flew over to England, started working at the magazine, worked for this very interesting lady called Bo Maggs, which had a patch in her eye and ginger hair, lived in a sort of fancy village, stately home. And from there, I ended up working in nightclubs as a barman. Again, the plan was always to save money to get back to New York. That was always the aim of the game here. And in nightclubs in the UK at the time, so we're talking 94, right? And in nightclubs in the UK, it's quite professional. in terms of the way the company work for a large company. There's a lot of big companies that run it. So it was Granada Entertainments, the people that had the TV station and all that kind of stuff. And I was doing super well there. I mean, it turned out that in nightclubs, in the UK at the time, you could do incredibly well just by not being terrible, and I wasn't terrible. So I moved up the management ranks pretty quickly. So I was running my own club, and then moved over to Rec Entertainment, several other European Leisure, Luminar Leisure, a few big companies. Eventually, as an operations manager, running 13 bars, clubs, that sort of thing. And so that kind of made England a bit more enjoyable for me because of the variety. Daytimes it was, marketing meetings, accounts reviews, all those kind of things. Evenings it was nightlife and driving around, checking out the life. So that kind of made England much more bearable for me for many years. But I always wanted to come back. And I was waiting for an opportunity. This happens a lot to a lot of people that want to move here, whether they lived here before or not. You're waiting for this ideal situation to occur where somebody, I thought, given that I'm an expert in running clubs and bars and stuff like that, it's only a matter of time before somebody says, hey, you used to live there, right? Mm. Why don't you come and run some down there? Mm. And I'd be able to move. But that didn't happen. So I just packed everything up, came over with my girlfriend and my 2 dogs, and I gave with enough money for 3 months to hustle my way to finding a job somewhere, which I did. So that's how I ended up back here. And I got a job. I was prepared to do anything. I didn't care. I was well paid in the UK and nice car and all the usual jazz, but I was willing to exchange that for a better lifestyle here. And I'll do any job. I'm not precious about that. So I accepted a job at a restaurant in Miramar Shopping Center or something like that. And that same day I thought, well, that's not going to be of interest to me, but I'll do it for the money. I really wanted to go back into sort of the magazine sort of publishing side of it, which I really enjoyed. And so that same day I had a meeting with the editor of the Euro Weekly, and I wanted to just offer my services for free as a contributor to help out, just to learn the ropes. And by pure chance, that day she said, well, we happen to be looking for an editorial assistant. Would you be interested? Totally. So bye-bye to the other job that I got offered.
So goodbye to McDonald's.
It wasn't McDonald's. It was like an Italian restaurant. It was in the kitchen or something. So I'd done that in New York. And so I got a job at the paper, which is what I wanted to do. And again, it was one of those places where you had a lot of variety. There's a bit hectic, but super interesting. You get to learn a load about what's going on in Spain because there are editions in the Costa Blanca, Almeria, Mallorca, Costa Sol, Exarquia. So I did that for about 3.5 years, and it really was super interesting. I loved the job. Got to learn a ton about Spain as a growing up because I'd known it as a young guy, and it made me really find the business dynamics of the Costa Sol super interesting. So I left there in a editorial heat of the moment type of scenario, and I went to work at the marketing company. That's how I ended up doing real estate.
That's Voodoo.
Voodoo.
And they specialize in real estate.
They specialized in several things, but real estate was a big piece of that, just by the very nature of where the business comes from. So they were developing a real estate specific website that worked with feeds and stuff like that. So this is now 2012. So I started there, and the idea was they were a web development company that were getting a lot of marketing clients without really having a marketing department. So they kind of created a marketing department to service those clients, but they didn't really have anybody running it. So the MD there, Peter, he said, look, we'd like you to come and run it. We'll cut you in on the share of the company and all that kind of stuff. And my wife had been working there as a web developer for 2 or 3 years by this point, and she loved working there, and I was always a bit envious. So I jumped at the chance. And initially the majority of the clients were real estate, but there's probably half that were also, at the time, there's lots of companies doing like alternative investments and stuff like that. But eventually we kind of specialized in real estate and the marketing side. So that's kind of got me into where I'm little like to now.
And so the reason you're now in marketing consultant for real estate is because of that journey.
Yeah.
And you got into and decided to understand how it worked.
Yes.
From there, yeah.
Yeah, it's actually quite the reason why I'm an independent consultant now. Mm-hmm. Is the part I was really good at, or at least I enjoyed. And I think if you enjoy something, you tend to be good at it. Mm-hmm. With maybe the exception of snowboarding, which I enjoyed, but was terrible. But so the bit I was quite good at was the initial consultation with the customers, with the estate agents. We would then agree a plan, and I'd pass it to my team, and they'd execute it. Mm. So when I went solo, I thought, well, that's the bit I'm good at, so that's the bit I'll do. Hence the consulting thing. I think consulting is a bit of a bad and dirty word, really, because everybody uses it for everything, from developers to this to that. But so I often have to say, oh, it's actually what I do. Like if you want somebody to consult on a topic to do with your marketing, maybe / sales, international real estate, costa del sol, talk to me. And if I don't know the answer, I'll be able to put you in the right direction. I'm sort of like, if you ever watched The Shawshank Redemption, Morgan Freeman, he can get you stuff.
Yeah.
I'm kind of like that, you know. So
like
most of the time, it's not for me to help you, but I know someone that can. And that, yeah,
facilitator, so to speak.
yeah. And the thing is that what I really enjoyed and what took me a while to learn was that not to give people what they were asking for. No, that sounds really stupid, but agents would come in with like a list of things that they needed. I want 3 posts a week on Facebook. I want 3 a day on Twitter or Instagram or whatever. A blog, a this or that. It's kind of like, come with a menu. Can you do that? And instinctively you'd say, yeah, sure. And you'd do that. And then 3 months later they would go, well, this hasn't done X, Y, and Z for us. And over a process of repetition of having that conversation, over a period of time I'd go, right, why do you want these things? What do you expect is going to happen as a result of doing this? It's only through repetition. We haven't had the same conversation over and over. And once they told me what it is they were actually trying to achieve, most of the time it wasn't what they were asking for, it was something slightly different. So it would be take the instruction, readjust it, tweak the strategy, and then execute it. And that was really what worked, and that's what I do now.
That sounds to me more of a sales role than marketing, so to speak, or sales and marketing. There's an element of sales in there because a good salesperson will listen to their clients and then advise them.
Yeah, but it was never. I'm the world's worst salesman, unless it's a topic I know about, in which case I probably sell it without realizing, right? What I mean there is that in the advice that I'm given, it's matching their marketing activity with what they expect the sales turnout to be. So lead generation was another area, the big area that we dealt with. And certain things have a dotted line to sales, other things have a straight line to sales. And that is a large part of the advisory process. So rather than a sales person, it's more of advisory.
Yeah.
So that's why I use the consulting. In retrospect, had I known how vanilla the term consulting is, I would probably got advisory or something a bit more fancy pants, which actually suggests, well, that is what I do. So it just saves mostly people in the real estate space, mortgage brokers, law firms, estate agents, developers, property portals. It saves time and money of going down the wrong avenue for an outcome that you were never going to get.
Yeah.
I don't have the answers to everything, but I have done things wrong enough times to know that they don't work.
Yeah.
And that's really the key.
So you were happy at Voodoo, and so what made you make the jump to go independent?
Same as everybody else, COVID. You speak to anybody that made a big change in the last 5 years, it was COVID based, right? So we were at the agency, we were a team of 4-ish in the marketing side, my team. As soon as COVID hit, everybody paused or wanted to pause their marketing. So we were then having to have the same conversation everybody had to have about maybe having these layoffs and stuff like that. And that coincided with my wife getting sick.
Okay.
And that was going to take all my attention. And so when I was speaking to the MD of the marketing agency about maybe the inevitable having to maybe look at laying off some of the team temporarily, hopefully, I said, look, my head's not going to be in this for the next few months. I'll go. Let me take one customer so I know our mortgage is covered and let the team stay. It wasn't really to be nice, but it was in a sense because I liked the team and also to do the right thing by the company. But it was just my priority immediately was my family and it wasn't work. And I knew that. And especially if we're going to lay people off, I'd have to be more on the game with work and not less. And so I thought, well, if I could take one customer with me, it was a little bit like a Jerry Maguire, who's with me, but done with the permission of the company. And that one company was Cloud9 Spain. So there's that association that I have with Cloud9 Spain. But they were clients of Voodoo's, the company I worked in for, 4 or 5 years beforehand. Now, it was more the marketing side that we dealt with, which was my department. So I'd been working with him anyway. And so Sean was my who's with me customer, and he took a risk. They took a risk of leaving an agency that given them all support. They didn't know what part was me and what part was the agency. But he took a risk that enabled me to leave, and that meant that my mortgage was covered.
Mm.
And then the customer, I had like a plan A, plan B, plan C, as you do. And touch wood, I'm pretty much still in plan A. So it's all kind of worked out the way I wanted to. I'm doing what I wanted to do in the way I wanted to do it. And everything sort of seems to have worked out, touch wood.
And your wife?
My wife got well.
Hey.
Yeah, my wife got well. And yeah, it took, I'm a corporate guy. Like you wouldn't think that looking at the way with the cap and all this sort of jazz. But my background, when I say clubs and bars, people think of some sort of mafia movie. It was a corporate thing. It could have been Sainsbury's, right? It was a corporate job. So I spent 15 years or 14 years wearing ties and suits and driving up and down the motorways to meetings. And my style is a little bit more free, a little bit more creative, a little bit more wacky. But I'd always been corporate. And because I'd always been corporate, I didn't feel like I had that entrepreneur gene of taking a risk. Because to be an entrepreneur, you gotta have to take risks. They're always gonna hand you a foolproof plan. So I didn't really have the balls, to be honest, to do my own thing. I was always really looking for a perfect excuse to do it, and it didn't work that way. So, but the situation of COVID, the situation of my wife being sick, kind of forced my hand and gave me the courage I needed to make the decision.
Yeah.
And it was the best decision I've ever made. But I can't claim any sort of great planning as a result of it. It was circumstantial. And I think a lot of people that I speak to that made big, huge life-changing decisions had a similar experience around the COVID time.
Yeah.
In some cases, still for similar reasons. It was the hand was forced a little bit by circumstances. Oh, since I'm gonna have to do this, I might as well do that. I might as well leave. I might as well start.
I mean, I deal with a lot of people who run businesses or creative businesses and are business people. And a lot of the stories is that they spend 15 years in a corporation or corporate, different going in and out of corporate jobs, and it burns you out, right? And so, what are you going to do? You got to do something. Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, in Spain, let's face it, in the south of Spain, if you're coming in cold without any enchufe, as I call it, plugs, the jobs, job connections, you're going to be in leisure or you're going to be in real estate. And this is the two things. You sell somebody a sangria or you sell them a house.
So so why real estate then? Is because it's the thing that's on your doorstep. Is that what it is?
I didn't want to do leisure. I didn't want to go back to leisure. It's not a thing for families. It's not conducive. I've done it. Being there about the t-shirt. But I'm a sado. I find the international real estate market, the Costa del Sol, fascinating. I don't understand why, but because I find it fascinating, I'm good at it, right? If I didn't, forget it, I'd be terrible like I am at other things. But I find it fascinating. We're dealing with a second home market. There's so many moving parts. We've got agents here on the ground that are trying to figure out how to tap into those markets from all different kinds of backgrounds. There's all these different markets within markets here. It's changing. It's exciting. And I feel that I can bring value. And at least for normal people like me, if you feel you're bringing value to the equation, you sleep well at night. You feel good about yourself, right? So I feel that, and it makes me feel good. It makes me feel good that I can have a conversation with an agent and in half an hour save them some major headaches that they might have had without that conversation. And that kind of fuels you. You get feedback, you get positive reinforcement. I'm like a little puppy. You tap me on the head, I'm happy. I go, oh, I want to do more of that. And that's me, real estate.
Okay. Well, listen, on that note, let's go and have some lunch, right?
Let's do it.
Muchas gracias.
Now we hit record.